say after 3.
Tumigas ang paa mo? Okay.
What else to say after 3?
Tumigas ang paa mo? Okay.
I want to do my plan, but my plans in the ring, I have a lot of techniques for his style, but the thing is, but I'm not saying that this is my excuse, but no, you know, my 2 legs is cramping. I cannot move. That's why I cannot move around. I can, you know, in early days, I can easily move and outbox him. You know Manny Pacquiao, but this time around, it's like my 2 legs is tight and hurting me in second round until 12 rounds. So, but I'm not making excuses. That's the reason why I cannot move, and I just staying and countering him of his punches.
What's good, family? So smash the like button and subscribe. So 2 days after Pacquiao fought Ugas, it was brought to my attention, and I succinctly and expeditiously broke the news that Manny Pacquiao was poisoned by the PBC Protection from Pacquiao program. Now this program is run by a cabal of individuals, namely haymon, PBC, and of course, on this particular occasion as well, Team Spence. Yeah, those were the cats who were set out to benefit from Pacquiao underperforming. And what do we know since this loss, since Pacquiao lost to Ugas? Team Spence have followed the script perfectly. Don't forget this. Errol Spence was missing from the fight. Errol Spence had no intention. Errol Spence could have been there, yeah, to call out Pacquiao if Pacquiao was the winner. Errol Spence wasn't there. However, Errol Spence's trainer was there. Guess what Errol Spence's trainer said after the fight? And you can go and watch it. Errol Spence's trainer said, "Oh no, we don't want nothing to do with Pacquiao. Pacquiao hasn't got any belts." People said to Errol Spence's trainer, "Okay, Pacquiao's lost now, but will you still fight Pacquiao?" "No, we don't want nothing to do with him. He hasn't got any belts." Well, guess what? Pacquiao didn't have any belts before he allegedly lost to Ugas. Oops. Now, like I said, I broke it to you, man, 2-3 days ago now, that Pacquiao, I heard information from one of my sources within the PBC that essentially Pacquiao's drink had been spiked. Now, for you man who haven't seen that video, to be honest, go and check that video out. It's my last, or about 2 videos ago, in the last few days at least. Go and check that out. But in summary, the fact of the matter is, Manny Pacquiao's water was spiked. Bottom line, it was spiked with some pre-cramping agent. Some chemicals which make your muscles tighten up and cramp up. Now this video today, we're going to develop that source's information and explain and essentially prove how we know Pacquiao's drink was spiked. Now Pacquiao's made some comments in the last few days and essentially said there were some unusual things going on fight night. Also, he said he's not too sure why his legs were cramping, which makes perfect sense. He wouldn't know why, because obviously his drink was spiked. Yeah, he was shocked. And again, in my last video on this topic, when I broke the news from our PBC source, in that video, we learnt that Pacquiao, in round 2 of the fight, was complaining and basically he couldn't understand what was going on. Team Pacquiao at the end of round 2, we were in a bit of a panic, not knowing what was going on. His legs were tightening up, and they didn't have a clue why or how this was happening, which makes perfect sense from their point of view, because you would be shocked, wouldn't you? If your drink's been spiked and your legs are all tightening up and you're cramping out of nowhere, you're going to be shocked and panicked, are you not? Especially when we all saw the footage. Let's not make out Pacquiao was having a bad camp. At the start of this video, I played you some footage, and you'll see Pacquiao dancing around. And this is the crazy thing about this. This for me, yeah, is what frustrates me the most. Is because in the build-up to this fight, I was making particular references. I was saying Manny Pacquiao had UFO feet. His feet, I've never seen, even though Pacquiao's always had fast feet, I've never seen him with his feet this explosive. That's why I used the term UFO feet. Pacquiao's feet were as explosive as ever. Pacquiao himself and Pacquiao's team were saying similar things. We've never seen him in this kind of shape. And now it's making perfect sense. After the Pacquiao fight, Errol Spence posted some tweets out basically smiling and smirking. He posted out some emojis smirking, and basically it's what they call duper's delight. Errol Spence was celebrating the fact that they'd successfully spiked Pacquiao's drink and made him lose, and now they're off in the clear. When bank robbers get off with the job, they often go back into the same bank, if that makes sense. Go back into the same bank they just robbed 2 months ago. One of them ones. Bragging, basically. And the fact Errol Spence was on Twitter smirking, even though at that point in time he should have been mad at the fact that it wasn't him who beat Pacquiao. He should have been mad that he lost a massive pay-per-view night. Instead, he was smirking and celebrating and smug. Smug about what? Smug about the fact he'd successfully spiked Pacquiao's drink and no one but the YB knew about it. But you guess what? He ain't so smug now. Because ever since I released the news, you best believe Team Spence have lawyered up. Yeah? They're pleading the fifth. They ain't making no comments on this news. And you best believe all the little shill channels ain't going to be asking Team Spence or PBC about this. They wouldn't dare. Yeah? They get shut down. You best believe. If I ever see Errol Spence, I'm going to tell him. And you watch, his face will drop. Because he'll know I'm onto him. I don't give a F what no one says. Errol Spence is super duper scary. Just go and listen to the interviews of his team after the fight. Oh no, we don't want Pacquiao. Oh no, we don't care. He hasn't got a belt. Oh no, yeah, we're moving on. I bet you are. That was your plan all along. That's why you pulled out in the first place with a fake eye injury. But again, back to my original point here. Throughout this camp, we've seen Manny Pacquiao, and his footwork has been extremely explosive. So it's kind of ironic, really, that Manny Pacquiao throughout this camp has shown how great his footwork is, and then ultimately it's his footwork or his lack of footwork or his chemically induced leg cramping which took away his beautiful footwork. Is that a coincidence? You tell me. Is it a coincidence Manny Pacquiao's legs are looking the best they've ever done, and then all of a sudden his legs are cramping and he can't use them? I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it even a little bit. And it's adding up why Team Spence are so happy at the result. Because not only have they got Pacquiao to lose, and therefore got themselves off the hook. Because obviously if Pacquiao had won, Errol Spence would have been under it. There'd have been heaps of pressure on him. Now Pacquiao's lost, there's no pressure really. What can people say? It's difficult to say that Spence is ducking Pacquiao, even though he is still. So it was imperative that Spence made Pacquiao lose. But not only was it imperative he made him lose, but how he made him lose. That's why I believe why Team Spence are so happy. They're so happy because they made him lose by taking away the asset they were the most scared of. 100%. I've got videos from 2-3 weeks ago. Team Spence saw footage. It was footage. This was the final straw for Team Spence. And you can go back in my videos and see it. I broke it at the time. I spoke to someone 3 weeks ago now, approximately. I spoke to someone before Errol Spence pulled out, yeah. I spoke to someone in the camp. Manny Pacquiao was releasing training footage. On one of them days when Pacquiao released the training footage, yeah, one of my Errol Spence dons, one of the sources I have in Errol Spence's camp, said to me, YB, Pacquiao looking too sharp. We scared. And it was around this time that footage was coming out, yeah, of Errol Spence getting whooped in sparring. Errol Spence looking super flat-footed and getting worked in sparring. Meanwhile, Manny Pacquiao's footage was coming out and he's looking like UFO feet. They didn't want no parts of that. Do you understand? So Errol Spence pulls out of the fight, essentially, because Pacquiao were looking too sharp. So it comes round circle. You have to understand the whole lot of what's going on here. The reason Team Spence are so happy about what happened. Not only have they got Pacquiao to lose, but they've got Pacquiao to lose in a fashion. They've taken away the very tool which had them super shook. Do you understand? They were able to neutralise, rather than do it in the ring. Spence should have. If Spence was a man, he would have neutralised his fear in the ring. You know what? We've noticed Manny Pacquiao's feet are looking super sharp. Let us go in there and solve the puzzle. Instead, you cheated. You pulled out and then you spiked his drink. And that's why you're all on Twitter smirking and whatnot. All happy with yourself. Well, not really, Spence. Because you're a prime, or you're meant to be a prime adult. And you had to pull out. All this you had to do. Pull out, fake an injury, spike people's drink. Just to duck a 42-year-old man. Wow, and you're smirking on Twitter about it. But this just shows you how far the world has devolved. There's no shame, there's no pride anymore. There's no courage. There's just scary looking ass pansies. That's the bottom line. Spence is a scary looking ass pansy. And this footage here, as you've seen by the title of this video, this footage you've seen at the start of the video proves there was nothing wrong with Manny Pacquiao's legs. If Manny Pacquiao was suffering from cramps and had really bad legs, how is it 10 days ago, before he was spiked, how is it he was dancing around with his feet looking better than ever? If you're suffering from cramps and leg problems, 10 days ago, because people have been saying things like, oh, he's old and oh, his legs were tired. Well, what we know is athletes train and then they taper. Tapering is when you back off. In the last 10 to 14 days before a fight, you reduce your training, so you feel fresher. You don't train more in the last 2 weeks. So my point to you is, we know Manny Pacquiao was spiked. We know there was some skullduggery going on because before, 2 weeks before the fight, Manny Pacquiao was dancing around with UFO feet, which is the footage you saw at the start of this video. He was dancing around just fine. He was only going to rest more in them last 10 days. This footage came out of him dancing around like with UFO toes. This footage which scared Errol Spence and caused him to pull out and caused him to spike Pacquiao's drink. He was looking just fine. Then he would have had more rest. 10 days. This footage came out about, I think, August 8th or whatever. 13 days before the fight. Or 12, however many days before the fight. 12 days of rest Pacquiao would have had. Yes, he would have still trained a bit, but point is, he wasn't training more. If his feet were able to be this sharp 12 days ago, how can his legs be cramping on fight night in round 2 randomly? Don't make sense. If you're suffering with cramps, he'd have been suffering with cramps when this footage was going out. He'd have been suffering with cramps for the last 12 days. And it also makes sense why Team Pacquiao and whatnot are so panicked. They're all confused. What's going on? What's up? Why aren't you moving? Is what they're saying in the corner at the start of round 2. If Pacquiao had been suffering with leg cramps for the whole camp, number 1, he wouldn't have been looking like a UFO. He wouldn't have been dancing, looking super sharp. Number 2, they wouldn't have been surprised in the corner. Number 3, they wouldn't have been talking about it's his best camp ever. Things just don't... I'm sorry, it just doesn't add up. This is a perfect example of his drink's been spiked. 100%. And then we find out that, guess what? All the water, we know this was a PBC event. Oops, what does that mean? If you're not looking out for it, a PBC event means that all the promotions is ran by PBC, which means all the water that's put there, all them water bottles, they're put there by the promotion. Who promoted it? PBC. Oops. There you go then. They had access, opportunity, and all the other things. The ability to get off this tampering of the drink, no doubt. Because it's also super suspect that Pacquiao, just out of nowhere, starts suffering with this. How does that make sense? If it was a week ago, Pacquiao could have treated it, couldn't he? If this was natural, if this wasn't induced by some chemicals on fight night, Team Pacquiao would have been able to address this a week ago. People have been telling me, oh, YB, you know, he was getting leg massages on fight night. Yeah, he probably was. Do you know why? We don't know when they started messing with his water intake. We just don't know when. That could have started earlier in the day. I can't tell you when it did. All we know is that it did start. And all we know is that this wasn't a thing that's been going on for a week. Because if it had, it would have been able to be addressed. If it had, we wouldn't be able to see Pacquiao dancing around the place looking like a UFO. Super sharp. And also, the fact that the leg started cramping so early in the fight shows it's nothing to do with age. It's nothing to do with whatever you want to call it. Age doesn't kick in round 2. Yeah? That's what you call chemicals. That's what you call people's drinks being tampered with. Bottom line. I'm sorry, there's no other way to explain it. It's a fact. And if you disagree, just rebut and dispute the points I've made. How does a man get old in round 2? How does a man get cramps in round 2 out of nowhere? Where does that happen? Think of it. In what other Pacquiao fight, think about it, of all of Pacquiao's career, in what other fight has this happened in round 2? Oh yeah, you don't know. It's never happened. Is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence? I hear from a source that his water's been tampered with, and it's in that same fight, all of a sudden, his legs don't work. Come on. Get serious. Is it a coincidence Errol Spence, after the fight, is smirking and smug and happy about losing a massive pay-per-view fight? Nothing makes sense unless this is what's happened. Yeah? But you've been exposed. I've told you before, the PBC Protection from Pacquiao program. It's out in the open now. And you, man, best stay lawyered up like you have been. Because you thought for a while you was all smart, posting up on social media. Now you back lawyered up. Now you back pleading the fifth. You don't want none of the YB. I'm on your neck. And you'll find yourself in court, no doubt. So you best crawl back under that rock you was hiding from. Because don't forget this. Errol Spence pulled out, yeah? And we saw one picture. We didn't see nothing else. For 10 days, all we got was hearsay from Bob Bennett. Please appreciate that. Hearsay, you have to really read between the lines. Some of you slow-dons, read between the lines. What do we know about hearsay? Hearsay is repeating what someone else said. And that's all we got. Bob Bennett repeated what a doctor allegedly said. Why couldn't we hear from a doctor? Oops. You might need to start sharpening up. We know hearsay isn't. You can't do nothing with that in court, which is why they did exactly that. You thought it was a coincidence. Bob Bennett comes out and speaks about what a doctor said. They know what they're doing. They can't. The minute they wheel a real doctor out, he's liable then. So instead, we'll get Bob out. We'll get the NSAC commissioner out to just give us some hearsay. Most casual fans with low intelligence will eat it up. Anyone with a brain knows that's not. You can't hold. No one can be. Bob Bennett can't be held to that standard. And they knew that. That's why they wheeled him out. The whole lot's have been a charade. Bottom line. And it's a big shame that Pacquiao has been done this way. And you even hear Pacquiao in his interview. I'm going to cover this shortly, but I'm going to say it here as well. Pacquiao did an interview in the last day or two, in the last 24 hours. Pacquiao did an interview on Fight Hype, and he basically said, yeah, we're going to have to look into what happened. So basically, he ain't got a clue what happened with his legs. That's what he says. He hasn't got no clue, which is backs up my point even more. If Pacquiao was suffering with cramping legs, it wouldn't be a big mystery, would it? Why are Team Pacquiao so confused about what happened on fight night? Oops. I'll tell you why. They don't know. What I know. What I've heard. No doubt. He got spiked. PBC were providing the water. And it's simple as that. The cramping agent ran into his blood and his legs start cramping up. Perfect.